I am Malcolm Nance, host of the Black Man Spy U.S.-Iran Warcast, day 76, if I'm not mistaken. The war has not ended. It has been going nonstop since February 28th, 2026. And even though there are a lot of people who think that the ceasefire that went into effect on April 8th was the end of the war, including President Trump, according to the Geneva Convention, it is not. Combat operations have actually happened in the interim period of time. The ceasefire is just a ceasefire. The war itself is now entering its third month. So, with that, I want to welcome you and welcome our co-host, Wajia the Lion, Wajia the Gay Lion, coming from Minneapolis, Minnesota, wearing his salty Pahul hat so he can feel like he's a real mujahid in Afghanistan.
Oh,
Or,
no.
or it's just cold in Minneapolis and he needs to get his head warm. So one of those two things. So greetings to all of you.
Definitely not
They love that hat. They're loving that hat. I'm surprised how many people are from the West Coast. I'm seeing Marilise B is from Arizona and Laura K's from Arizona. We go back to bed, you guys. It's 6 a.m. What are you, old like me? Monterey, William, what are you at the War College or DLI? I wish I was in Monterey. I loved Monterey. I lived there twice. Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to have some light banter and introductions. Jacob Carlsbell, intelligence officer extraordinaire, is actually at a conference. He is one of the most well-known people in Denmark for national security. What I find upsetting is he's meeting these two losers. Somebody named Jens Stoltenberg, who is like the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, and some other guy, former, president of the European Union or something. I don't know, but not us. He's not hanging with us this morning, but we'll give him credit for this because he has a day job and he has to keep up with that. But as I told him, I go, those two guys don't rate. Tell them to come back an hour later. So, but no problem. Yeah, Mitch. Yeah, Stoltenberg. I can't remember the name of the second guy, but it's somebody big. Oh, he's the former commander no, he's a former president of the European Union or something like that. You would recognize his name. That being said, Wajia, what kind of coffee cup are you rocking today?
I already put it in the dishwasher. I know it would go to shame for it.
Oh, sin of all sins. You don't come here without a cup of some kind. Thank God. Start checking the mail, baby. There is something coming in your priority mail very
I'm
shortly.
excited for it.
All right. And for the rest of yous, I'm rocking the Rachel Maddow show cup. I stole this in the first show I ever did with Rachel Maddow in 2007, where I was talking about waterboarding being torture. And the funny thing is, it's very hard to get on her show. If you're on there twice, I've been on Bill Maher more than I've been on Rachel Maddow. I think I was on Rachel Maddow only 3 times in 15 years. And on Bill Maher, I've been on 5 times on the show and 1 time invited to sit in the audience so I would know how to behave during the show. So I'm more of a regular on that. So yeah. And the funny thing is, when I was on MSNBC, I went through a lot of my photographs for my memoir this year, and thank God I went in the Ukrainian army. I lost so much weight when I was in Ukraine, man. I am svelte, compared to the way I was when I was on MSNBC. But I had a lot of things going on. Wasn't exercising a lot. My late wife had cancer. I was a full-time caregiver for 3 years. So I was chubsy wubsy, man. I saw those photos. Then I went to Ukraine and it was like, I was just eating whatever I needed, but the stress, running around, being all over the place, carrying 40, 50 pounds of, gear and ammunition everywhere, lost a lot of weight. And now I am back to the exact weight that I was when I was 42 years old, 39 when I got out of the military. And my doctor, actually my I had a running doctor because I run. Uh, Actually said he called it your combat weight. Everybody knows a weight that you know in your heart of hearts was your optimum weight. And my optimum weight at that time when I was in Iraq in 2002, I was in just my most svelte, my most fit. I could run for freaking ever because people were trying to kill me. And I actually, when I went back to Ukraine 10 years later, I went right back to that weight. And, the doc says, "Can you guess your weight right now?" And I was like, "I don't know, da, 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 da. I'm not going to tell you what it is." And he was like, "That is precisely the weight that you're at. That is your combat weight. Your mind thinks that this is what you should be." And believe me,
Wow.
I see Sabrina says she was 118 when she went to Army Advanced Individual Training. No, man, that is not the weight that I was at. But when I left Ukraine, I had a big bushy beard. I looked like the French in World War One. The guys who were in the trenches were called le poilu, right? The hairy ones, poilu. And so the average soldier in France was known as a poilu. And my guys gave me a knife as a going away present that was made by a company in Ukraine called Blade Brothers. And it's called Le Poilu. And it's for French reconnaissance soldiers from World War One. It's a trench knife. And they were like, "Malcolm, you're fucking big bushy beard." And I left and I went to Paris, right? Directly from Ukraine to Paris. I went to Verdun and then Paris. And I wore a suit, I went out to dinner and I had this like really nice suit and tie on with the big bushy beard, And the French guys were all like, "Yeah, yeah, that guy, he looks good." They had no idea that literally 72 hours, no, make that 96 hours before I was in Kharkiv and I was humping ammunition to put away. We were moving our command post, and I was humping ammunition, and I was just sweaty, and I was on my last day, and just telling my guys not to get hurt. And then, boom, went by my car to Kiev, right onto a train to Poland, out of crossed the border, went to Zhuzhov, Poland. And, I just didn't shave because it was big as, watch, bigger than yours. Maybe as big. Yours is pretty neat. Mine was like, "Brr, le poilu." And then, but one of these days, I'm going to show this we'll have when I do that tour of my office, I've had 100 people ask me to do a tour of my office and the stuff that's in it, for the paid subscribers. Um, yeah, you're right. By the way, the person who says I need to be the voice of my audiobook, absolutely. I have 4 books that are audiobooks, and I hate the people who read it. But for my memoir, I'm going to be throwing jokes and stuff in between what's actually in the book. So you're going to get like audiobook
That's
plus.
definitely
And I remember I was reading some of this to a friend and going, "Holy shit, that was dangerous." You know, and it's like you don't realize it till you're reading it. So anyway, long story very short, when I was on MSNBC, I was a little chubsy wubsy, but I do have a skiff. For those of you who keep asking, I have a man skiff. I don't have a man cave. I have a man skiff. And if you guys know what that is, then you'll find out how fascinating that is. So anyway, I don't know how we got on this subject of me looking freaking svelte now, but it's even funnier is I have these Russians who come on the internet and they're all like, "You're a big fat pig." It's like I never. What are you talking about? And I can jump like I like to brag because I'm going to do it as soon as I'm done this show. I'm jumping up and running 5K. So without a heart attack in between. And so the point is, get out there, live your best life, and don't let people dictate what you look like or how you sound, right? Um, otherwise, you're just letting idiots dictate what goes on in your life. That being said, I was just bantering so that we could get to the 1,000 people we usually wait up for here. And so now that I've got my Rachel Maddow show and I am no longer chubsy wubsy and cute, pudgy dad bod, um, we can go on with the show. Wajid, how are you today? How's your health? I know you're still recovering from your shoulder surgery.
Hey, it's slow but steady. I had a very complex shoulder surgery, which is
Mm.
fine. And it's not my first health problem, but recovering slowly but surely and trying to get to a comfortable life. I used to be a power lifter, and
Mm.
I also used to run a lot. And now, after you get sick and have a couple PIC lines and get a staph infection, all of that, goes goes down the drain.
Yeah. Some
Uh, and
someone just
you know,
mentioned Tai Chi. I've always wanted to do Tai Chi.
it's
And
fun.
I've the funny thing is I've always wanted to do Tai Chi because I saw Martin Sheen doing it in Apocalypse Now, in that scene where he's in the hotel room in Saigon and he's drunk off his ass. In real life, he was actually blind drunk when he did that scene. Martin Sheen is a friend of mine now. I don't know how, but me and his family are close. And what I had dinner with him privately one time, and I was like, Martin, you will never be anything more to me than Captain Willard in Apocalypse Now doing Tai Chi. And he goes, Tai Chi's good for you. And I'm like, doing Tai Chi. I got Captain Willard is telling me. And then he told me the whole story about how he was blind drunk and working out demons in that scene. And that scene where he bashes the mirror and cuts his hand open. All real. No acting went on in that scene from the moment he got drunk in Saigon to where he fell down with his hand cutting and bleeding and crying. All that was a camera on one shot. Best scene in Hollywood movies, as far as I'm concerned. But now he's Saint Martin of Malibu. He is the most pious, beautifully Christian Catholic I have ever met. And he really should be the Pope. That's my opinion. He really should be the Pope. I love Martin Sheen and his wife Janet and his kids so much, even Charlie. But good God, meet your heroes. Imagine meeting your heroes and they're better than you ever thought. That's Martin Sheen. He has convinced me to take Tai Chi, and all you guys writing do Tai Chi have convinced me also. All right. Okay, enough of the petty banter. I got to go out and water the flowers. Then I got to go on a 5K run. And then I have to read a friend's book, of which I will. Today is Tuesday or Monday? Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday.
All right. Tomorrow, I'm doing a special Black Man Spy interview with a guy named James Vianney. He is a New York Times magazine writer. I met him in London. He wrote a book about the Mariupol theater that was full of children, 1,000 women and children, with the big sign on the outside that said children in here, that the Russians deliberately bombed and killed almost 800 of them. And it's called The Theater. And it will be the saddest thing I ever do on Black Man Spies talking about that. And his book is brilliant. And I'm gonna invite all of you to come watch that when we do it. And we're gonna have a private Substack with him for everybody. And I want you all to go out and buy his book or pre-order it. Pre-order it. I have a
What
pre-order copy.
what time is your interview with him tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow I'm doing it 11 for an hour, and I'm going to invite him to come on at 12 because he's in London. By the way, we were all in London at the Red Lion, Winston Churchill's favorite pub in Whitehall. And this guy could pack them away, baby. I was having Guinness. He was double scotching them bad boys, just like Churchill. But a fascinating guy. You guys want to meet this guy. So that being said, let's get on to the activities of this war, because even though I know we're still a little shy of from the 2,700 people we used to get, they will all be back because it appears we're going back to war. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Waja, I understand that there have been 70 people killed over the weekend in Lebanon. I don't think the Al Jazeera uh, death tracker or casualty tracker has updated that. Hit me.
The updated one from my searches would be 2,869. Al Jazeera's number is 2,702.
Mhm.
So that's the difference for you. And then Israel just recently had another uh like few people killed, but like mostly soldiers on the borders with Lebanon, that are fighting the Hezbollah, bringing the total Israeli deaths to 47.
47? That includes
Uh,
combat casualties, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's different because we had 27 and we weren't actually counting the military count because the Israelis don't really release that except in ones and twos. So that's good. We have that number better. Next.
Go
Any
to oil.
changes? Yes, let's go on to oil because we're going to discuss oil and gasoline today. For those of you who are like, well, what's going on with the shooting and the fighting? Nothing is going on with the shooting and the fighting. I have a little bit of an update on some spy activity that was occurring off Kuwait in the last 24 hours. But believe me, the story in your life is how war is politics by another means, and now war is economy by another means. Whoa! West Texas intermediary in 24 hours jumped $3.30. Brent North Sea, it's at 101 now. Brent North Sea crude is at $107.62. That's $3.51. Murban crude is just creeping up there, 105. That's $1.94 increase. That's known as bad. And we're going to talk about why these prices are going back up and why I think there is no way anymore for Donald Trump to lie himself in and out of raising and lowering gas prices, oil prices. Thank you, Aja.
Yep.
What do you think, man?
What I think is very interesting because, like you said, a lot of the market no longer believes him, but he is even at a worse situation because in the past he would be able to control the market by saying we're almost at a peace, we're almost at we almost have peace. But even then, like, we are not talking about peace talks. We're talking about talks about having peace talks.
Right.
That's what a memorandum of understanding. And Trump did not even read. He said, I saw the beginning of the 10 points that Iran sent me, and I stopped reading it. He said, I didn't even finish reading it.
Right.
I don't like it.
Yeah,
And
because why would you even want to read the enemy? You're the peace negotiations you're trying to have. Uh, Go on.
which tells me that he's not looking for peace, which tells me and tells the rest of the market that there is no peace happening anytime soon. He's literally putting himself in a position where he can no longer manipulate the market like he used to be able to manipulate the market by saying, "Oh, I didn't even finish the peace points that they sent me, or the points of the memorandum of understanding."
Mm.
Well, that's everything you need to know. That's literally everything that you need to for this to go up.
Okay. Thank you for that. Because we're going to talk a lot about oil today because there's some pretty shocking news about oil storage in this world. We talked about it yesterday and the day before. Why do I need to talk to you in a podcast about espionage and geopolitics? Because right now, oil market, oil storage, and the coming fuel collapse At the end of this show, I want all of you to go out and go buy 2 or 3 5-gallon containers. And you had better stock up on oil, right, on gasoline right now. Things are looking very grim indeed. So I'm going to go over that in a minute. But first, let's talk a little bit about some of the news that's happening here. And let me tell you, if I had my way, all I would do is repost Chelsea Handler roasting uh, people for the Kevin Hart roast yesterday. It was so good. But we don't have that opportunity. So that being said, we're going to talk now about the key issue that is the significant activity of the day. And it's what you were saying a moment ago, Waja. Um, oh, real quick, little administration here. For those of you who are here, I want you to hit that little heart button about 30 times right now. And while you're doing that, I will run out real quick here and go to malcolmnance.substack.com. And I will open a new chat for you. And that chat is where I want you to post your questions. I always forget this because I had a friend, I had somebody doing the chat themselves and going through the questions. So this is U.S. Iran Warcast Day 76, right? 76.
Yes,
Yeah.
76. Yes.
Place your questions here. And while you're doing that, hit that heart button like a million times and tell the algorithm that we are here and up. I use funny writing there so that you would know it's different from day 75. Here's where I want you to put your questions. I will answer your questions directly. And I think that's a good place to go from. Okay, back to X. Okay. Seriously, people. I know we're 24 minutes into this show. A lot of you guys are thinking, you're taking your time getting to the big subject. I want to take my time getting to the big subject because from this point out, speaking until we start answering questions, I have only one bit of data related to the situation in the Persian Gulf. Actually, that's not true. It's two. This morning, the Kuwaiti authorities intercepted and arrested 4 IRGC members who were clandestine service officers attempting to enter Kuwait, try to get to Kuwait City using a small high-speed boat. They apparently were infiltrators. These infiltrators were either going to be used for reconnaissance, linking up with Shia Muslims in the country, or carrying out clandestine operations. They saw them come from over Bandar Khomeini, used the Bubiyan Island as a mast, and came into their waters. With our assistance, the Kuwaitis rolled them up. That's troubling because now it tells you that the Iranians are actually sending agents out into these countries, and they did it by water. I personally would have just walked them across the Iraqi border, hung out and smoked shisha with the Iraqi Heshib Shabi, and then gone with the smugglers who go through the oil fields all the time, right? And just crossed the border on foot and linked up with a car just south of the Safwan border crossing. That's how real spies do it, right? Or had some guy out there, with his 2 sons and their camels and all that stuff. Somebody says they didn't see the coffee mug. Rachel Maddow show. I'm going to be drinking it all. So that's what happened. The second thing that happened about 20 minutes before we started this podcast, I will bring this to your attention. The Iranians warned all merchant ships sitting off of Ras Al Khaimah. Ras Al Khaimah is one of the emirates north of Dubai. I'm going to show you an image of the ships themselves. IRGC, Ras. Okay. IRGC warning everybody to move off of Ras Al Khaimah. So if you just give me a moment, bear with me. I will show you the imagery that we have of the automated ship data off Ras Al Khaimah right now. So this is the United Arab Emirates. This piece up here is Oman. This, where my finger is the Strait of Hormuz. This area here is shark-looking island. That's Kishem Island. All the merchant ships are clustered off Dubai Creek, another cluster further off Dubai. This is off Jebel Ali. And this is Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, Al Quwain, right? These are three separate other emirates. The Emirates is made up of seven emirates that are all little principalities, but they all fall under the control of Abu Dhabi, right? So this cluster is the closest cluster to the Strait of Hormuz that is clustering just near that southern traffic separation scheme. This ship is at the old traffic separation scheme, and these two ships are waiting to go up into the Iranian traffic separation scheme. The IRGC came over radio and announced that all of these vessels off Al Quwain and Ras Al Khaimah are to move south back down to Dubai because they consider this now a future shooting zone. What they really want is they want to be able to identify when the Americans and any ship that's going to attempt to run the southern Strait of Hormuz traffic separation scheme will come active. So that's very interesting that this is the live look of the traffic separation scheme. And as a matter of fact, one of these vessels came down here and then went straight up there. That's likely a dhow that was going. A lot of these small boats go to Dubai and they bring goods to Iran. And they stay along the coast. This is the shortest way. And you can see that one coming down, some going up. That's how they bring TVs and goods from the UAE to Iran. But they want all these ships to clear out. They want them all back here, right? Clear missile zone. So if they have a battle. So they're warning all these ships in that western holding area south of Al Quwain and Ras Al Khaimah to move. That's significant. That could prove that they want a clear field of battle in case they have another duke out with the United States. That being said, I want to bring to your attention this discussion of oil. Hold on, give me just 1 second. I will go to my bookmarks, and we are going to look at these two charts. Mario Naufal, who I'm on all the time now, says the oil market just crossed the breaking point, and there is no playbook for what comes next. The Strait of Hormuz closure knocked out 11 to 13 million barrels a day, roughly 4 times larger than any supply outage in history. Analysts at HFI Research say that we are already past the point of no return. The sequence goes like this. Refineries start running low on crude. That's already happened. They bid aggressively to secure what's ever left. That's already happened. That's why West Texas Intermediary, Trump's like, we're selling oil. Yes, but not to the Americans. You're selling it to everybody else in the world, and now our gas prices are going to go up, right? Number 3, whatever is the prices stop moving in a straight line and go parabolic. Then at some point, demand just collapses on its own because people can't afford it anymore. I saw this analysis yesterday on Bloomberg. Asia gets hit first and the hardest since it depends most on the Hormuz flows. And here's the most brutal part. Even if the Strait of Hormuz reopens today, actual oil deliveries to Asia wouldn't resume until mid-July. The only thing that could offset the shortage of this size would be a COVID-style government lockdown. Without lockdowns, the only mechanism left is prices rising until people simply can't afford fuel anymore, at which point the economy breaks itself. HFI's honest conclusion, they have no idea where prices will settle, and neither does anybody else. There is simply no historic precedent for what is happening right now. Here is their chart. This is oil storage in 2005 on average across that year. This is oil storage now. Nothing. It's plunging. We showed you that plunge yesterday from that chart that was from JP Morgan. So now I'm showing you a second chart from HFI. All oil analysts are saying the same thing. We're running out. This is worse than 1973 will ever be. 4 times less oil than the 1973 oil embargo. Other words, this is not funny. And this is all because of one thing and one thing only: Donald John Trump. Right? Oh, Malcolm, you're just a partisan. You just don't like the guy. That is correct. I don't like the guy, but I deal in hard reality. Here's some more hard reality. U.S. crude storage starting in January 2026 over here, right? U.S. crude storage is yellow today. 5-year high is this dark
We
blue
can't see
line.
shit.
What's that?
Well, now we can see. That's
I'm
right.
going to show you. U.S. crude storage now, here's our highs. Our high back in the oldie days was Joe Biden in 2022, and it went down because of the Ukraine war, then came back. Well, surprise people, this is where we are right now. We have peaked on April 4th, and it's all downhill from here, they believe.
Mm-hmm.
We are out of stored fuel oil. Okay. Now, let's take a look at another chart. No, I'm going to give you an analyst here who is doing an analysis. This was on uh, Mario's show yesterday. Generally, this is not book. It's not copyrighted, so we can play it here.
Full 10 years of data. And here's 2026, and it is plummeting down. It is now, just this last week, just poked right below this. So it is now the lowest it's been in 10 years. Gasoline inventories in the United States, the lowest they've been in 10 years. Now, why is your gas prices going up? Why do you see $4.29, $4.49, $5, depending on where you live, $7 if you're in California? Why do you see those prices? Because our inventories are dwindling. Why are our inventories dwindling? Because we're sending them all over the world. Why are we sending them all over the world? Because we've set the price too low in the United States. Somebody is monkeying with our oil market, making the price low. When prices are low, demand stays high. The only way you make demand meet supply is you let prices rise. But we're not allowing that. So a lot of people are commenting about this. This is the Carlyle Group. Think what you will of them. I know I have my own opinions, but Carlyle's Jeff Curry says this.
What you're about to hear is fucking scary. So pay attention to this.
Recently on a very well publicized interview.
When do storage tanks run empty?
You're parts of the world like Australia, Philippines, Thailand, you are. But the question is when and where. I still say it with you, it's going to be, sometime in the month of May that you're going to end up with Europe hitting tank bottoms. And in the U.S., it's somewhere in that July 4th time period. If not sooner, by the way, the inventories number coming out of the U.S., the ones we got last night, the ones last week, I've never seen anything like that before. And I think that it's important to remember that these inventory numbers, let's define terms, a deficit versus a shortage. We have a deficit today, meaning that demand is above supply and we're drawing inventories. It's not a shortage yet. So to answer your question, you have the shortages in places like, Asia, and it's not that bad yet because you're not completely at tank bottoms. But in places like Europe and the United States, you're in a deficit and you don't hit the shortages until you hit tank bottoms.
Tank bottoms, that's what we're heading towards, and we're actually screaming towards it at this point in time. There's so much more to...
Tank bottoms means the bottom of every storage tank in the United States. Right? Remember how we kept saying that this thing is a swimming pool full of oil and it doesn't matter what your source of oil is? Once you get to the bottom of that swimming pool and the water levels are below the filters that are sucking it and recycling that water, well, oil is sort of like that. And when we run out, it doesn't matter. I mean, Laurie Van Horn says, what about Canada? Canada's pumping maximum. The problem is the United States, somebody says, Mr. Global says we're not going to run out. Maybe. I like Mr. Global. That guy's good, right? But the point is, we've got multiple credible international analytical groups saying it's going to get bad. Maybe it doesn't run out, but shit's going to get tight. And your fuel prices, I wouldn't be surprised if the United States, on average, hits $7 a gallon, which, by the way, to be fair, is what I was paying in England last week, right? Last year, when I was in France, that's normal for Europe, $7. $7 a gallon for gasoline when I drove all over France. Trust me, I felt it every time I went to the pump. And the only difference between the United States and France in these prices here this year is the United States makes you pay in advance before you can get gasoline out of that pump. Because people are going to start trying to pump steel like they were doing in Europe. But you're right, Europe has short distances. Somebody just said that. And better mileage cars, since now Trump has gotten rid of the mileage standard for the United States. So, long story very short. If we go back into combat, and that's the next subject we're going to talk about, when I was a young guy, I was in my teens in high school, there was a series of war games. I played war games, not like little lead soldiers. These were actual hexagonal grid, really super intellectual paper war games. And one of them that I played was called Oil War. And what it was is that the oil situation, a major crisis had developed, and oil got so limited and so restricted worldwide that the scenario is that the United States and Europe invades Saudi Arabia and Iran to seize the oil. That was the scenario. When I was in high school, right, in 1976, when this game came out, 3 years after the oil embargo. Yes, SPI, Otis knows it, Simulations Publications Incorporated. If I was a billionaire, I would rebuild that company. That was some of the best intellectual work I have ever done, was playing those paper war games and standing there and figuring out, how do I meet my strategic objectives? How do I meet my tactical objectives? Okay, 82nd Airborne parachutes into Jubail, Saudi Arabia, and we fucking seize it. That was an actual scenario that you had the option to do. But if you didn't, and oil went below a certain threshold, the American economy would collapse. That was 1976. I played that game. That's happening now. It's happening now. The only difference is it's not. Yeah, somebody says you all need BYD cars, by the way. Yeah, I've seen them up in Egypt and in Canada. Those Chinese cars are awesome. And they have good fuel mileage, and the electrical mileage is outrageous. We are at a point now where our next subject of discussion this morning is what Donald Trump said. Yes,
Hold on.
yes, sir. Khalas.
I've been holding my tongue. This is all pissing me off because I've been calling this for a very long time. I've been saying that our strategic reserve has been running low. I've been saying that the United States has been giving up its own strategic reserve in order to get some sort of economic relief because of the war that Trump has chosen. We have said that because of these things that are happening in the future, you are going to be told that you're going to have to limit your shower. You're going to have to shut down your electricity. You're going to have the malls closing early. You're going to have schools closing early. You're going to be sent home for so many reasons. Gas is going to be lined when you're going to have you're gonna have the lottery in order to fill up your gas tank. We have been yelling this out, and because now I'm seeing other people saying, yes, you're right, it's infuriating because we've been calling it out. Trump yesterday said, I believe that this blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is genius. Why? Because people are buying oil from Texas. What the hell are you talking about? 90% of the oil that the United States has ever produced is all consumed by the United States. We have been cutting out US consumers out of our own oil so we can get the big dollars because we are borrowing money that we don't have to fight a war that we cannot afford.
Right. Absolutely. And we subsidize gasoline, by the way. Europe doesn't. That's why they have $8 gallon gas, right? By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday. Do you know how much gasoline is in Iran? A gallon? It's the
$3,
same.
$4?
It's the same price as the United States gasoline in 1972, before the oil embargo.
$2, $1.
17 cents per gallon.
One.
And then after the
Yeah.
oil embargo, it jumped up to 75 cents per gallon. Some of you may be old enough to remember a Volkswagen commercial from 1972 in which a Beetle, like at the beach with a bunch of surfers, needs gasoline, and they go looking in the under the rugs and in the seat of the car to get pennies and dimes and quarters, and they manage to get up like 57 cents out of, what's in their pockets and everything, and they fill the Beetle with gasoline. That's how it was when oil was king. It's not like that anymore. Now we're paying, a multitude of 100 times what that TV commercial showed in 1972 with the Volkswagen Beetle. And the point of the story is that the Beetle back then was supposed to be so cheap and such good gas mileage that 57 cents could get you, and your surfer buddies out to go get a 10 cents hamburger. This is a very different period in history. Okay, Waja, I'm glad you got that off your chest, because now the next set of bad news is here for us to discuss. We're clearly going past 1 hour on this one because there's a lot of questions. And the next thing that I have here on day 76 is this phrase. I don't know if you can see it. Are we going to war? Apparently, the conventional wisdom is that Donald Trump yesterday made a comment that he wants to re-implement Project Freedom because he is feeling the pressure over tankers not coming out. But he just doesn't understand that by having active naval combat in the 24-mile Strait of Hormuz with missiles and rockets and fucking Gatling guns going off, tanker insurers are going to go, well, we're not going through the Strait of Hormuz. You're actively fighting there, right? So that being said, yesterday there is a news report, multiple news reports, by the way, including from Axios, the stenographers of the White House, have said that there is a massive internal split in Washington right now, and that one half of Donald Trump's senior staff wants the United States to follow the Netanyahu playbook and go back to war. The other half is terrified over oil and gas prices and now wants the United States to get back onto the diplomatic track and work out an agreement. Okay? There's a lot. They say that Trump is visibly frustrated because he can't get a deal. Iran has now come back with absolutist, maximalist negotiating strategy. Trump is starting to adopt the mindset that he has to do something before he goes to China. His area, the two areas of default are he believes that the Strait of Hormuz is the number one thing that he has to relieve, and he's correct. You're right. Trump is visibly demented. And that he is now harboring the fantasy that Iran is completely divided and that Mujtaba al-Khamenei is not in charge and that the guys in suits are saying one thing and the IRGC is doing another thing. They refuse to recognize that the IRGC is Mujtaba al-Khamenei. And whatever the
Thank you.
IRGC is saying is what the Supreme Ayatollah himself is saying, because he is the IRGC. So it's mind-boggling that they just refuse to believe that these Shia Muslims are Shia Muslims, and that because there are two guys, Aranchi and Galibaf, who are wearing suits without ties, that they are one sect of the Iranian government, and that the IRGC, who is wearing camouflage uniforms, and Mujtaba Khomeini is split. This is a fantasy that we had all better get out of our minds right now. There is one force in that country, one force, and he might be missing his leg. We killed his dad, we killed his wife, and we killed his child. And that guy may be laying in a hospital bed. And I have to tell you, I said this on Mario's show yesterday. The Iranians are showing a measure of strategic thinking that Washington is not. He's laying back in his bed and having a good time of it. Well, Malcolm,
So
why
let
you
me let me show you guys this real quick.
Khalas, yalla.
This is what Malcolm is trying to explain. You got the supreme leader right here, who's in control of everything. He's in control of the media. He's in control of the military. He's in control of the judiciary. He's in control of the religion. He has the ability to delegate. And part of his delegation is allowing to have the guardian of council that
Which the
allows
Israelis tried to assassinate.
That's right. And which have to approve the list of presidents that run for office. People vote for the president, but even then, once he is elected, he has to be approved again by the general council. And if the president, right, nominates the cabinet and the people elect the assembly of experts and they elect the parliament is also in check by the guardian of council. The supreme leader is in charge of everything. If he wants, he can take out the president. If he wants, he can take out the parliament. If he wants, he can shut down the electoral votes. And the speaker of the parliament is not in charge. The president is not in charge. What happened here recently is because of the IRGC, right? The current supreme leader is in power. Because the current supreme leader is in power because of the IRGC, the supreme leader is also protected by the IRGC.
The IRGC is a force whose sole function is to protect the goals and leadership of the Iranian Revolution of 1979 forever. That's their job.
Exactly.
Tafaddal.
So the supreme leader feel like he owes his position to the IRGC. He fought with them when he was 16. He has been close to them when his father was the supreme leader, and he only agrees with them most of the time. He rarely agrees with the parliament. He rarely agrees with the president. And currently, people who are negotiating is the speaker of the parliament, the foreign minister, and the president. Meanwhile, the person who's going to have the final call regardless is the supreme leader.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the first negotiations in Pakistan ended, because the U.S. Administration did not do their job, and they went directly to Pakistan. And then when they sat down on the table, and the Vice President J.D. Vance was like, "Let's make a deal," and the Iranians were like, "Wait, we have to go and confirm with the supreme leader." J.D. Vance got offended, and he was like, "Okay, that's it. We're going home." Because you didn't read this, because you didn't study the government structure, because you don't understand anything about the government, you will do stupid mistakes like this.
You know what I like about your chart? what I like about your chart is over on the right, you have a picture of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the former president, who
That's
was
right. He was
considered a relative
assassinated.
moderate. We killed
Yep.
him in March
hmm
in his home. He wasn't even involved in government politics. Trump and the Israelis just,
He was retired by then.
right, he just went around and started killing all the former moderates. Guy was sitting in his house and they blasted him in March. He wasn't, I didn't even remember him, okay, until they killed him. And next, I'm sure, is Rouhani, the guy who negotiated the JCPOA with Obama. You know, there's this campaign is not good for America. It's not good for the world. Thank you, Roger, for that chart. We need to talk a little bit about the Trump's visit to China. China. So today is the 12th. In 48 hours, Donald Trump is supposed to meet with Xi Jinping, right? Dictator of the communist country, communist capitalist, mega bucks bank, the People's Republic of China, which they should call the People's Republic of China Bank. It's the least communist on the planet. And there are three options that he has before he arrives in China that's going to have to happen. One of the three things could occur. So tell me what your opinion is. One, he goes to China and he begs Xi Jinping to help him force Iran into a negotiation. If he does that, he will come off as completely weak, right? It'll be a weak dictator begging a strong dictator to do this. The second is he directs Marco Rubio and company to cut a deal no matter what, right? And he comes in there and he arrives in utter humiliation. The third thing is, oh, there's a fourth there. I didn't even think about it. That, who is this? Michael Grobel just put up. The third is that in the next 48 hours, he resumes major combat operations against the Iranians, right? And he goes to China looking like, Mr. Strongman. I don't let anybody dictate to me. I'm using American force. But he has already showed to the world we have no more force that we can do to these guys shy of an atomic bomb. That's not a joke. We have used everything except the 8 Dark Eagle hypersonic missiles that we have for development, right? Which would be stupid. The Chinese would be laughing at us. So
We only have like 4 or 3 of them.
We have 8 total 8 in the entire inventory, right? They're $40 million missiles on a $250 million launcher. And once you've shot those 8 and missed, okay, what if they miss? Holy shit. China will be laughing.
What if they don't explode?
Or don't explode. And Iran captures one and sells it to China. So that reminds me. And the fourth option is what Michael Grobel said. Trump cancels the visit to China on the argument that he has serious negotiations. We will look like the complete and total wimps of the world. All of these are bad. All of these are bad. What is your impression?
I feel like he wants to have the royal welcome that China has promised him. He loves the optics of walking in as a king and having the military salutes. And he will, I think he would like that to play in his own image. And if any begging happens, I feel it will happen behind closed doors, and he will I feel like he might do that mostly because he is so desperate that this war ends, that this is his best solution.
Mm-hmm.
I also think, and I've said this before, if any country would have any actual leverage over the United States, it is China. We get most of our products from there. We get most of our even we some medications, material, we get the bases from there. Some raw materials, we get a lot from there. The plastic that we get is mostly from there in terms of Chinese, made in China, made in China. A lot of shit that we use here is made in China.
Mhm.
China also has a very serious interest in this war ending because they get most of their oil from the Gulf states. They're tired of this war, even though it is helping them politically, it's helping them diplomatically, being the peacemaker in the region. The long run would make them run out, even though they have planned for this war. They have millions of barrels. Unlike us, they have millions of barrels in reserve that could have them last a little longer than the rest of the globe.
Well, in fact, according to that chart, China is the only holdout. They are holding. They topped up their reserves maybe more than likely last year after Midnight Hammer. They realized that Trump wasn't going to be satisfied, used their intelligence community, and they've topped up all their storage and reserves. More importantly, they are not authorizing any export of any refined product. That means China is not selling gasoline to nobody. That was 2 months ago.
That's right.
And they don't give a fuck because Australia is about to hit rock bottom on gasoline, right?
Hmm.
Their refineries. Remember, as soon as they announced that Australia was going dry in gasoline, their biggest refinery had an explosion at it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a bad circumstance. Whereas we're going to the bottom of our strategic petroleum reserve because Trump never refilled it because Joe Biden used it. He wasn't going to touch anything Joe Biden touched. This man's ego is going to kill not just our economy. This is why I'm saying when we're all done here, go on out. I'm doing it. I've got to fill my tractor because I Forrest Gump this thing. I have to mow my big lawn, right? But I'm not going to fill my tractor at $8 a gallon. I will go out right now at 425, 450 where I'm at, and I'll fill up 4 20-gallon, 4 or 5 gallon containers, because in a month, it could be very, very bad. I may actually have to give the guy who mows my lawn with his big, sit-atop mower, zero-turn mower, I may have to give him gasoline to do my job because he may be paying $6, $7 a gallon by 4th of July, you know? And the last time I didn't mow my lawn for a couple of months, people tried to break into my house because they thought it was abandoned. So crime rises when economy gets bad. Let my
I
grass
said
go.
this,
I'm
I said
sorry.
this before. I said this before, Umar ibn al-Khattab. I'm not Muslim anymore, but yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in the history of Islam.
Muslim.
Uh, um, but Umar ibn Khattab is considered to be the most literal hardliner of the Prophet companions,
Yes.
and he was a literal companion where he applied the law to the literal explanation of the word. And in Islam, if you steal, you cut your right hand and then you cut your left hand and then cut your right leg and then they cut your left leg depending on how many times you steal. Well, there was a time where there was hunger and people were hungry and they could not feed their kids and family and people were stealing. And he paused applying that law and people came to him and asked, well, companion of the prophet, why did you stop cutting people's hands off? He said, well, people are not stealing to be corrupt. They're stealing because they're hungry. People have been stealing since the thousands of years because they can't afford to eat it. I've never been to a rich country where people are stealing to eat or where people are going to rob another neighbor because they can't afford living.
Mhm.
We have purposely for years shrunken our middle class and squeezed every penny out of them. And we've shown how fragile our middle class is during COVID when all of our economy got dismantled because we had to shut down. Well, imagine this is 10 times worse.
This
With
is
the oil get cut out, you are going to be facing way worse situation than COVID.
let me let me emphasize that. Um, I live in a big community in upstate New York. I'm from Philadelphia. My neighborhood in Philadelphia is hurting badly, but I keep getting appeals now for money and resources. One of my neighbors runs the food shelter in the city in the town near I'm at. I'm in a hamlet. I'm in a tiny little hamlet. And she said, "Malcolm, it's not food. We're getting a lot of food donations. There are no diapers." And I'm like, what? I didn't think about that. They're very horribly expensive. Diapers are also made out of essentially plastic and cotton. So now their price is going up astronomically. So, the last time I did this, I donated like enough money for 1,000 diapers. And she said, "You're the only person who actually donated for that." And I was just thinking, wow, this is horrible. This is horrible, right? This food kitchen needed diapers. And we don't have people that are doing that. We have MAGA. MAGA's ideology is fuck you. I got mine. I'm giving nobody yours. Everybody who was here, I accidentally ordered giant boxes of cookies when I was getting my dog food. And I got like 3 extra giant boxes of dog cookies. And my dogs are beagles. They're tiny, so they can't eat these giant dog cookies. So yesterday I took them to the SPCA. I didn't get through the door, okay? Before I got there, there's a giant sign that says, "Free dog food for the poor. We are out of free dog food for the poor. Please donate." Right? And then I didn't get to the door with this giant box of dog cookies, and they go, "Oh my God, we need those." I'm like, holy shit. These are leading indicators of trouble in our communities. That people think that, what's going on in the Persian Gulf isn't affecting them. It's really affecting them. And it's really getting into these communities. And I think that we're going to see very serious trouble by the end of the summer. And the fact that we're here talking about gas and Trump's visit to China are all deeply intertwined, which is, I call this a warcast. It's not just a geopolitical cast. It's also a deeply American political cast, which cuts down to every aspect of you trying to get aspirin, for example. Aspirin prices have gone up dramatically because now India is not exporting any. They don't have the chemicals from the Gulf, and they are pricing in the absence that's going to happen 3 or 4 months from now. Things ain't funny, folks. All right, let's
Here's
get to
my
your
last two
uh,
cents. My last 2 cents, and I'm gonna make it quick.
tell me.
The more income inequality happens because of this economic shrinking, the higher the political polarization will happen in the United States. The problem is not left or right. The problem is an economic system that we have designed, a war that we have gone into on purpose without doing the mathematical decisions beforehand. These are consequences. Now, you're going to find people on the right immediately blaming the left, and you're going to find people on the left immediately blaming people on the right and not focusing on the decisions that could solve this.
One of our commentators, Malakalip, says, "Is this finally an opportunity for people to finally understand the destabilizing influence oil has on our world?" Exactly what you just said. We go to war today because of oil. Get rid of dependence on oil, and we reduce the need for war. Um, I got to redo my roof here on my house, and when I do, solar's going on, right? But can I point something out to you? Trump eliminated all solar subsidies from the United States government. So what would have been almost a free solar install, or at least a 75% off, is now only going to be 35% off because that's all New York State is offering, right? This man is a horrible influence. He literally wants to kill the world. I mean, as far as he's concerned, right? So long as he keeps getting that money. Let's go to questions. I'll give you
Yeah.
some comments. Iran from Kajin Fei says, Iran is playing the USA like the fools they are. Why is Trump still allowed to ignore the professionals? Because 77 million idiots voted for him to be an open, outright, straight up racist to deport everybody who isn't white. That's what they voted for. And if you talk to them, that's why they support him. I've said this several times, he is their avatar. He is the face of their hatred of other people. And this is a malfunction we haven't settled since the Civil War. These people want to go back to 1965, right? Where blacks did not have the same rights. And we just saw that with the Voting Rights Act being gutted. It's just utterly crazy.
Was
Deb
it
says, this one's for you. Deb says, will she find a way to give the orange man an off ramp in Iran?
not necessarily? No, she is going to try to convince Trump to give up on some things like the Strait of Hormuz, for example, to allow Iran to dilute their uranium instead of giving away the uranium. But he's also might put some economic pressures on Trump to be like, listen, we're facing a lot of economic hardship because of this, and we might have to cut you guys out from a lot of the projects that we give you. We're gonna have to stop, and he's gonna put buying soybeans back on the table. The United States, Trump in particular, resulted in China stopping buying farm goods from the US, whether it's pork or whether it is soybeans. And that is on the table. And, that is all good incentives that Trump would be very interested in. And that's why this is an important visit on so many accounts. Even if that would make Trump look bad, he's going to try to find something to make it look good out of in the end.
I like this question from Empower Dance Project. Whose bright idea was it to send Trump to China? Trump's! It was Trump's idea. Is China interest geopolitically to help the U.S. end this war? That's from Jackie O. No, they're eating our economic lunch. It is not in their interest to do that. Waj, somebody says, would you please post your graphic you just had of the Iranian Leadership Organization chart onto
Yes.
the chat? I posted the
Yeah.
chart from yesterday of Professor Robert Pape's escalation trap, and how right now we only have two options: suffer humiliation as far as Trump is concerned, or go to ground war. And that's where I suspect we are going to get back our 500 followers when 3,000 US combat troops jump into Iraq. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I cannot tell you what that idiot is thinking. Everything is about him. Remember, he wants himself to be seen as the new Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan. Crazy. Shipping requires oil. That's very true. I had a big discussion yesterday about truckers. Truckers were paying between $700 and $800 a tank for gas, for diesel prior to this war. Now, one trucker did a big thing on TikTok about how he's paying $1,800 per tank. $1,800 per tank. And as that happens, truckers will not start taking loads they can't afford. And they won't just pass those prices up. They'll just stop working, which means the truckers that can have fleets that will pay for that diesel will now raise your prices by triple. So
And how
everything
do U.S. citizens get all of their products in the United States?
China.
Truckers.
Truckers. Yep. Oh, my only statement here is from Sandra McCoy. Here in Houston, MAG is getting more aggressive than usual. The driving, the certain restaurants, Perry's, ambiance is hostile because they are struggling to survive as everyone else is. Yes, but they live in denial, right? This is patriot. What is it? Paying 3 times more than you paid for gasoline under Joe Biden is patriotism now. Right? Holy cow. This is just all bad. Anyway, that's it. Most of them are comments, so I'm going to let us go there. We're over. We are back to our 2000. Tomorrow, tune in every day. This thing's getting worse. Okay, we have no negotiations going on. Zero. We will be one day out from going to China. Will Trump humiliate himself or will we be going to war? And all of the major news organizations are saying he is leaning into some form of combat. Maybe as he thinks it's a minor escalatory step, Iran may not see it that way. We could see ourselves back at full scale war. And I don't want us to go back to full scale war because I've had one day off in 76 days. And that one day that I took off, we had to have a special that night because we went back into combat. I would like to be Forrest Gump and just mow my 2-acre lawn, right? Just be an idiot riding a tractor back and forth, making nice patterns on my lawn. But no, I have to come here and explain what the orange moron is doing geopolitically to this world. That being said, if you are watching this on YouTube, come over to watch us at 9 a.m. on Substack at malcolmnance.substack.com. Watch Wajia Lion, who usually has a Q&A after this, a deeper Q&A, where you can get answers about the Middle East from him. Also, I know you have to be a subscriber to come into this. I would like everyone to share this with a friend. We are trying to get to 100,000 followers. I don't make any more money on that. It changes the dynamic of the algorithm, and we actually rise. I'm trying to beat Glenn Greenwald and all these others to #1 on world politics. And the #1 website is like some news blog that puts out all sorts, thousands and thousands of news things. We actually discuss things that happen in your life. The second thing I would like to ask you as a personal favor is please go out and donate to somebody with something. I've emptied all of my cabinets here for food that goes to the food shelter. All my dog food cookies are all gone now. I'm going to go give some of your subscription money. I'm going to go buy a few, maybe a half a dozen 50-pound bags. As you guys, if anybody's got dogs, know that's money, right? A 50-pound bag of dog food, even from Costco, is serious business. But my shelter is begging people for dog food money. And I have it. I'm going to go do that today. And just do something nice for somebody. The world is going to get worse, guys. Go hoard that gasoline. And, and try to just decompress from this until tomorrow when Wajia and I will be back. I think Jacob will be back tomorrow. And look out for the special Substacks that we're going to have with James Vianney, the writer of The Theater. That is going to be an exciting story. Just horrible, horrible story. When I was in the Ukrainian army, they asked me to speak remotely to the economic summit at Davos. And one of the questions I was asked was, why do you feel justified in being in the Ukrainian army? And I said, there was the video of that theater that I saw on Ukrainian TV when they struck it. I was in the army at that time in Mariupol, and they brought out the body of a little boy who was about 5 years old, and he was clearly dead, right? Flush, just dead. And the female paramedics in their orange jumpsuits took him really gently, and they realized they had to try to resuscitate him. They were giving him, trying to do heart compressions, rescue breathing, and they knew he was dead, but they had to do it, and they were both in tears from that. And I said, that broke my heart. At that minute, no quarter for Russians, as far as I was concerned. And when I got into the Kharkiv counteroffensive, my guys, we didn't cut any breaks because of them killing those 800 children, right? With the words children in 20-foot letters written all over the building. The Russians struck it deliberately to kill those people. James Vianney wrote the book where he went to the witnesses and survivors of that theater. We're going to sell that book. Everybody, I need to do a special on that book because it is heartbreaking. All right. So that being said, let me see. I was supposed to read something to you.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, go ahead, Waj.
What Malcolm was trying to say a minute ago about donating. If you were thinking about taking any actions in the past years, this is the time where citizens should stand shoulder to shoulder to help each other.
Mhm.
This is the time where community service is important. This is the time where donations is important. This is the time where your vote matters most. This is the time where you think if you can run for office, you should. This is the time where you think grassroots organizing is time. This is the time. And it is important for you to, listen to the news and learn about it and be updated. But this is your tool to make good decisions. You have been getting informed. You have been learning about the things that matter most. And you can make a difference. There's thousands of you coming in every day to listen, thousands more on YouTube who are watching these messages and listening to the live stream.
Yeah.
And, we're just looking out for the best interests of US citizens and, the humanity that we are a part of. And we're not asking you to do anything more than you can. And we're just asking you to help each other.
Help each other. And that's a great point to end on today. I would like to thank Carly for her recommendations and others for your recommendation for me to go get 2 goats and let them mow my lawn. Donald Trump every year in his New York State properties rented sheep and put them on his properties because, are you ready for this? Not only would they cut the grass, he got a farm subsidy. New York State actually paid him a farm subsidy if he had more than like 6 sheep on his property. So he rented those. And I'm seeing people out here. I'll have to talk to my town council about whether I can have goats. They already told we couldn't have chickens, but goats, we'll have to see about that. Maybe I could just call them white dogs or something. Who knows? Somebody else says African tortoises, right? All right. Thank you so much for coming to this episode of Black Man Spy, U.S. Around Warcast. I hope tomorrow's not as exciting. I have a bad feeling it may be very exciting. Please tune in tomorrow. Go out and help somebody else today. And if you want to, help your friends to subscribe to us. If you feel that this has been worthwhile to you, become a paid subscriber. We're going to be having some paid subscriber only things. I know tomorrow we're going to have James Vianney on, and I want you to take part in that and become part of the community. You can chat with your family, friends, and become part of the Black Man Spy community. I have heard your words. We are going to have the first merch that I ever had in the 15 years that people have been asking me to do this on TV. I've had people say, all I want is a t-shirt that says, Nance's law of coincidence takes a lot of planning. We're going to have that. I'm going to have that. I've never done that because people are like, you're a grifter. How do I grift? I don't make any money, So we're going to have that because like 100 people asked for that. So we'll see. Give us your ideas in the chat. Okay, watch it. See you tomorrow. Take care. Check your mailbox.
I can't wait for it. I will be checking for it.
All right. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.